ITC TechShare. I'm Tom Grissom. This is a continuation, part 2 of 2, of organizing files, folders, and backups. Yesterday I shared how I organize my computer files, so let's do a quick review. Yesterday we went down to the taskbar and clicked on the folder icon. This is called File Explorer. Whenever I click on that, that opens up a window that shows me the folders available on my hard drive. And by default, these are system folders that are automatically created. Now, I generally put everything I do inside a folder called Documents. This is kind of my working directory. So if I double click to open up Documents, you'll see that I have a folder called AY1314. That is the one that we created and worked on yesterday. I also have AY1213. This is an example I'm going to use here in a moment. But let's just double click and open up AY1314, and you'll see a subfolder called Committees and a subfolder called Courses. I created this yesterday. And then within Committees, if I open that up, I'm drilling down, and we talked yesterday about this thing called the path. So this is showing kind of breadcrumbs, the way that I can follow. And as I call this drilling down, I'm drilling down into my folder structure. So within the Committees folder, I have ATAC, the CEPS Tech Committee, and ITAC subfolders. All right, so that's a quick review from yesterday. Now, let's look at it a little bit different way. Let's go over here to OneNote. I've got an example here of the structure that we did yesterday. This is called a tree diagram, so this is just a different visual way of representing it. And I like this because you see these stair step or these indents that kind of show you the folder structure very, very clearly. So yesterday we worked in the folder called Documents. We made a subfolder called AY1314. We made a subfolder of that called Committees. And there's also a subfolder called Courses. That is a subfolder of AY13. You can follow this tree structure down. And then within Committees, you see ATAC, CEPS Tech Committee, and ITAC. And then I have two folders, subfolders underneath Courses. So that's just a quick review. Now, another helpful tip is if you do things by academic year, another benefit of that is when I go into Documents, you'll see that I have a folder called AY1213. That is obviously an old academic year. It's no longer active, so basically all those files in that subfolder are static. They're not going to change again. It's essentially an archive at this point. So what that helps in a couple different ways for backup. One is these files these folders can become quite large over time. As the year progresses, you're going to be adding more and more and more to it. So the folders are going to grow with the number of files and the file size that you have to back up. So by starting fresh every year, let's say that this one held 10 gigabytes worth of information, and I'm just starting on AY1314 and it held 2 gigabytes. All right, if I back up my entire computer, that would be 12 gigabytes. But if I'm only concerned about my active folder, once I back this up after everything has stopped changing, I don't need to back that up anymore as long as I have it in a safe, secure location. So what I'm concerned about is periodically backing up my active folder, AY1314. All right, if I just have everything lumped together, I would be backing up, everything, all 12 gigabytes, and that takes time. And if it takes time, it's going to be inconvenient. If it's inconvenient, you're probably going to be less likely to do it. But 2 gigabytes is definitely manageable. So we need to talk a little bit about backups, and there is a thing in IT called the 3-2-1 backup rule. And I'm going to refer you, I'm going to jump over here to OneNote, did another little screenshot. I'm going to refer you to a blog post made about a year ago by Scott Hanselman, the Computer Backup Rule of 3. And basically what this says, if you're working on computers, they're electromechanical devices, so things can go wrong. And here's a picture of a hard drive with the platter essentially smashed. So how do you prepare yourself in the event of a computer failure? And it's not a matter of if it's going to fail, but when it's going to fail. They're electromechanical devices. So you want to make sure you have a good backup system. Here is the actual blog posting if you'd like to visit, and I'd encourage you to read that. But there's something called the backup rule of 3, or sometimes in IT we call it the 3-2-1 rule. So basically what the 3-2-1 rule says is you want to have 3 copies of anything you care about. Your important files, you need to have 3 copies in 2 different formats and 1 offsite backup. And what this will do, the 2 different formats, say I have on this example here, I have a file on my computer. In a moment, I'm going to make a backup to a USB drive. And then the offsite backup is important because if you're making a backup to a USB drive and you stick it in a locked drawer, a secure location, if you have a fire or water damage or tornado, a natural disaster, you need to be able to recover. And if it's stored in your office, if something happens, that may not, you will not be able to recover. Okay, so that's the 3-2-1 rule. Let's jump back over here and show you another example here. Let me just drill down into AY1213. I did this example. I made a subfolder called Courses. Now I'm in my previous academic year. Remember, this is in the past. So let me open up Courses, and I have a subfolder called EDA 5960, Section 1, Fall of 2012. And let's say I want to go back. I'm teaching the same course this semester, but I want to go back and try to remember, what did I do in this course? And maybe I want to do a spreadsheet exercise that worked out really, really well for me last time. So let me open up something, and let me just say that this data for pivot table spreadsheet, that was a really good exercise for this class. And let me just hold the control key down, and let's do a high school data example, and let's do salary schedule. So I've got those three highlighted. I'm going to press Control C, or I could right click and say copy. Now I want to copy those folders or those files, except I don't want them to go into the 1213 folder. I'm going to go back to my documents, go to the current year, AY1314, go to my courses, and go to my current course, which this is the same course but a different semester. And then here you'll see a syllabus that I have out there. Now, in that previous example, there was a folder called Spreadsheets. Again, I might want to make a subfolder called Spreadsheets to keep everything organized. And then let's drill down into that one. And then if I do a Control V, or I could right click and say Paste, there are those three files. So I essentially moved them from my archive folder into my new one. And what this allows me to do is improve my teaching over time. I make notes whenever I teach a class. I write down, what worked well, what did not work well. And, if you tweak it a little bit, you can make constant improvements. It's really helped over the years. So that is another helpful tip. Let's go back here. Let's go back down to my File Explorer. Let's go into Documents, and let's say that I've got everything here organized the way that I want, and it's time to make a backup of my academic year 13-14. I've not made a backup for a while, so I'm going to right click and say copy. And then I am going to plug in a USB drive, because one of the things in the 3-2-1 rule is to have it in two different mediums. So I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to right click on my folder and open up another window. All right, so here we go. Let me reorganize these things side by side. This is how I typically do it. I open up two File Explorer windows, and the one on the left is typically what I call the source, and the one on the right is the destination. Let me switch this around because we're going to do it this way here. So this is this PC, and let me go down. Whenever I plugged that in, you'll see that I have a USB, drive D in this case. So that is going to be my destination. Here is this PC. Let me open up Documents, and I only want to back up my 13-14, and it's just as simple as hitting copy, coming over here, clicking a blank space. Now you might want to, and this is something I do again to organize, you might want to make a folder. So let's make a folder. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have asset numbers for our computers here, so I typically put the asset number of the computer I'm making a backup of, and then I will put the name, the username, and then I will put that this is a backup. And then finally, I'll put another underscore. I'll do 12/04/2013. That's just a date. And that's just my system. Again, you can use whatever system that you want to, but let me open up this backup folder. And once again, I'm going to copy from my current computer location, AY1314, into my backup folder here. So I'm going to right click and say paste. And boom, this was a very small file, so it happened very, very quickly. But if I open this up, I'm on my USB drive in my Grissom backup 12/04/2013 folder. And if I look, here is an exact copy of all of my files. Let me go down to Courses. Here's my fall 2013. There you see my spreadsheets that I copied over. So this essentially now is a mirror image of my AY13 folder over here. Let's just go right here. Okay, so that's a quick way. So now I've got it in 2 different mediums. You'll want to make sure that you remove your USB drive safely and put it in a safe, secure location. Make sure you follow your organization's policies and procedures about backing up and keeping things secure. And it's that easy to make a backup. Now the final thing is many people will have network drives, and if you have a network drive, your IT department will be making periodic backups, and then they often back those up to tape or another medium, and those are often stored off-site. So that would be the 3-2-1 rule. We will be protecting our data.